Never did I imagine a day would come when my own flesh and blood would abandon me this way. When you dedicate your entire existence to nurturing a child, watching them grow from infancy to adulthood, you naturally expect them to remain loyal forever, isn't that so? Yet here I find myself, a woman of 62 winters, confined to this dilapidated apartment, forsaken by everyone I held dear. All because of one impulsive moment, a few misinterpreted social media posts. She severed all ties without a second thought. My daughter, Sinead, such an ungrateful soul. I'll admit to having my temperamental episodes, but doesn't everyone? As a single mother, exhausting yourself day after day just to ensure there's sustenance on the table, you come to realize that life isn't the fairy tale that innocent children believe it to be. I once stood tall as a proud, resilient woman, sacrificing everything for my daughter's well-being. Sinead was merely 13 when her father passed away. His departure nearly shattered me, but circumstances demanded I persist. I took on countless shifts at the restaurant, accepted every possible job to ensure my daughter had shelter, nourishment, and proper schooling. There was no time for self-pity or tears. I simply persevered through gritted teeth. And now she has the audacity to claim I've done nothing for her? Sinead was once what I considered a model child, or so I believed. She maintained excellent academic performance, avoided trouble, and I felt immense pride in her achievements. But as she matured, I noticed a heartbreaking transformation. I was no longer her universe's center. She developed friendships, cultivated personal aspirations, and gradually distanced herself from me. When she chose nursing as her career path, I was elated. A noble profession, a stable future. I thought my daughter had secured her path in life. But then what happened? She abandoned it. And for what purpose? An absurd career in real estate. What rational person abandons their education for such a profession? I'm well aware of real estate agents' reputation. They manipulate, they deceive, all for a commission. They contribute nothing meaningful to society. And my daughter aspires to join their ranks? It's simply incomprehensible. I vividly recall the moment she announced her decision to abandon her studies. We were in the kitchen, and I was nursing a glass of wine, seeking relief from another day of relentless arthritis pain. She stood there, her expression unwavering, declaring she couldn't pursue nursing anymore due to family circumstances. I dismissed her excuse with contempt. What circumstances was she referring to? Had I ever compelled her to quit? She claimed she needed immediate income to assist me. Assist me? When had I ever solicited such help? No, this was entirely her decision. Yet now, she has the audacity to shift blame onto me, portraying me as the obstacle to her aspirations. The situation deteriorated further. When she began earning, I harbored hope that she might show some financial appreciation toward her mother. After dedicating decades to raising her, surely I deserved some reciprocation? Instead, she assumed this sanctimonious role, acting as my supposed savior. Yes, she covered my medical expenses and accompanied me to physicians, but every action came with endless grievances. She portrayed me as an encumbrance, as if my illness was a choice. I never sought dependency, but let's be frank, I nurtured her through childhood, and now it's her obligation to reciprocate. That's simply life's natural progression. Then that infamous live stream occurred. The memory remains crystal clear. It was an ordinary family dinner gathering. Everyone sat around the table, wine flowing freely, engaged in casual conversation. Someone mentioned Sinead, and I simply voiced my honest thoughts. Every word was truth. She truly is unsuccessful, lacking the courage to pursue her dreams, abandoning her education midway, settling for mediocrity. I raised her to embody dignity, yet she's content being a mere real estate agent. I spoke nothing but facts. Yet Jenna, her misguided cousin, secretly broadcasted the entire exchange. And Sinead witnessed everything. Her response to Jenna was chilling. Leave the video up. See you tomorrow. A shiver coursed through me. What transgression had I committed? I merely articulated what everyone silently thought. But I knew Sinead wouldn't disregard this. Sure enough, she returned from her real estate conference, her demeanor glacial. I anticipated an explosive confrontation, a heated outburst. Instead, she maintained an eerie silence. She withdrew to her room, closed the door, and I sensed an imminent transformation. What I failed to anticipate was that she had already orchestrated her permanent departure from my life. I sit here now, replaying every moment in my mind, and I can't help but wonder, what has become of children these days? We dedicate our lives to nurturing them, molding their character, and when they finally stand on their own feet, they cast us aside. They view us as mere inconveniences, disposable once our utility expires. I, Patricia Sullivan, poured my entire existence into my daughter, only to find myself abandoned and defeated. But I refused to accept this treatment passively. I was the one who gave her life, who made countless sacrifices, and I won't tolerate being treated like some distant acquaintance. While I don't seek her sympathy, I won't allow her to simply walk away. I'm determined to make her understand that, regardless of her wishes, our bond as mother and daughter remains unbreakable. After all, isn't it unnatural for children to desert their mothers? I acknowledge my imperfections as a mother, but I gave everything I had to raise her. Reflecting on those years, questions haunt me. Was my devotion excessive? Did I burden Sinead with unrealistic expectations? Or was I merely a naive mother who invested everything into a child who failed to value my sacrifices? My husband's death left me widowed at 40, a middle-aged woman with a teenage daughter to support. Life showed no mercy, offering no pause for grief. My waitressing job at a modest Italian restaurant in downtown Boston barely covered our basic needs. The meager paycheck couldn't sustain both my child and our housing expenses. My solution? I shouldered 2 additional jobs. Mornings found me behind a supermarket counter, evenings serving tables, and late nights cleaning corporate offices for a financial company. 3 simultaneous jobs, all to ensure my daughter had shelter and never went hungry. I once harbored personal aspirations for a better life. Reality, however, mercilessly crushed those dreams. I stood completely alone. My parents had long since departed, and my in-laws never concealed their disdain for me. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a lowly waitress, undeserving of their son. After his death, they washed their hands of both me and Sinead. We became each other's only support, just us two, and I vowed never to let my daughter experience want. Each morning, I rose before dawn to prepare her breakfast. While I sipped my freshly brewed coffee, she would enjoy her hot chocolate, dressed in her pristine high school uniform as I watched her eat. My own appearance took a back seat, my waitress uniforms grew threadbare, but I remained indifferent. Every extra dollar went towards giving Sinead the best life possible. When she expressed interest in joining sports activities, I scraped together money for her uniform. When she wanted to attend summer camp with her peers, I picked up additional shifts. I was determined that she would never feel inferior to her friends, even if it meant personal hardship for me. I'll never forget the day Sinead's nursing school acceptance letter arrived. Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from vindication. Finally, my years of sacrifice seemed worthwhile. I envisioned her in crisp nursing whites, working a stable profession, living a life of dignity. I believed she would recognize and appreciate my dedication. But I was mistaken. She failed to comprehend. She never truly understood. Then came the devastating moment. The day she announced her decision to leave nursing school. That scene remains crystal clear in my memory. I was resting on our worn couch, my joints throbbing from arthritis, having just returned from an exhausting shift. Rain pelted against the windows as Sinead stood before me, fists clenched, her expression resolute. She declared she couldn't continue her nursing education. I was stunned. After everything I had sacrificed to secure her education, to provide her a better future, she was willing to discard it all. When I questioned her reasoning, she claimed she needed to start earning immediately to help with my mounting medical bills. My exact words from that day escape me now. Perhaps I insisted she needn't sacrifice her education. Maybe I pleaded with her not to abandon her aspirations. But regardless of what I said, her mind was set. From that moment forward, I witnessed my daughter's transformation. Gone was the innocent child who once clung to me at night, curious about everything. In her place stood a stranger. Initially, I believed her decision stemmed from concern for my welfare. But gradually, I realized this was merely a pretext. The truth was, Sinead had developed a taste for money. She relished the independence and respect it brought. As she ventured into real estate, I watched her drift increasingly distant. Her life became consumed by business calls, client meetings, and property deals. I observed her transformation. Her style evolved. She drove luxury vehicles, resided in upscale apartments. She became someone I barely recognized. And the most painful realization? I had become irrelevant in her life. I struggled to suppress my bitterness. I tried to accept that my daughter had matured and carved her own path. Yet, gradually, I began feeling like nothing more than an obligation she needed to fulfill. During doctor's appointments, her impatience was palpable. Each time she covered my medical expenses, her heavy sighs betrayed her burden. Questions began haunting me. Had I truly been a mother to her? Or was I merely a debt she felt compelled to settle? My entire existence had revolved around nurturing her. I abandoned my aspirations so she could pursue hers without hesitation. But what did I receive in return? Nothing but emotional distance and indifference. I never sought gratitude or material compensation. All I yearned for was a glimmer of appreciation. Just the smallest acknowledgement. Yet my daughter, the one I had devoted my entire being to, couldn't spare even that much. Now, as I gaze through the window of my modest apartment, memories flood my consciousness. Questions torment me. Had my sacrifices been excessive? Had I placed too much trust in my daughter? Or perhaps I was simply a mother who loved too deeply, never preparing myself for the day when my child would no longer need my presence. That particular evening remains etched in my memory. We were enjoying our traditional Sunday dinner at my sister's house, a cherished ritual spanning decades. The atmosphere was perfect, red wine flowing freely, delectable aromas wafting from the kitchen, and warm laughter filling every corner. I expected nothing more than our usual gathering, sharing memories and light-hearted banter. How wrong I was. When Sinead's name surfaced in conversation, I couldn't help but laugh. My words weren't meant to wound. I was merely voicing what I perceived as truth. She had once harbored such noble ambitions, dreaming of becoming a nurse, helping others, making a meaningful impact. And now? She had settled for selling properties, a profession requiring no specialized education, accessible to anyone. Taking another sip of wine, I spoke with unmistakable contempt. Sinead thinks she's successful just because she's sold a few houses? I expected her to achieve something more meaningful instead of this mindless pursuit of wealth. Laughter rippled across the table. Some nodded in agreement, while others chuckled nervously to maintain harmony. I saw nothing wrong with my statement. I wasn't fabricating anything. I was simply expressing my honest thoughts, as I always had. What I remained oblivious to at that moment was that Jenna, my sister's daughter, was broadcasting the entire conversation live. The wine continued flowing, loosening my tongue further, allowing me to voice the frustrations I had bottled up for so long. I remember when she abandoned her nursing school dreams. She broke down crying, complaining about the difficulty of exams and her inability to keep pace. While it was disappointing, it was also rather pitiful. Not everyone possesses the resilience to pursue their aspirations until fruition. Another wave of laughter filled the room. My brother-in-law let out a dismissive snort, while Aunt Patricia merely shook her head, seemingly sharing in my disappointment of Sinead. And now she carries herself as though she's the family's crowning achievement, I continued, my tone growing increasingly bitter. She parades around with her real estate career as if she's discovered some profound wisdom. In reality, she merely facilitates property transactions for genuinely successful individuals. She has achieved nothing truly worthy of pride. Just then, I caught sight of my sister's discomfort. Her eyes darted toward Jenna, who remained absorbed in her phone. I assumed she was simply engaging in typical teenage social media browsing, unaware that she was broadcasting our intimate family discussion to countless viewers. The words continued flowing from my lips without restraint. I elaborated on Sinead's lack of appreciation, how she acted as though she alone shouldered the responsibility of my care, despite my never requesting such assistance. I described her constant preoccupation with work, her sparse visits that seemed exclusively tied to financial matters. She excels at maintaining the facade of a devoted daughter, but she's never truly prioritized family. I remained completely unaware that these words were being transmitted live across social media platforms. I had no knowledge that numerous viewers, including Sinead herself, were witnessing this unfiltered conversation. Approximately 60 minutes later, after returning to my residence, I received Jenna's message. "Auntie, I need to apologize. You should see this." The message contained a link. Upon clicking it, I was confronted with myself, my image, my voice, every harsh word I had uttered, displayed on a live stream. The comment section overflowed with reactions. While many came from strangers who passed judgment without context, what truly chilled me was Sinead's brief response. "Leave it up." My stomach churned. I knew my daughter well. She wasn't one to passively accept situations. Those 3 words carried an ominous weight, suggesting calculated intentions. The following morning brought no communication from Sinead. No calls, messages, or emails, just deafening silence. I attempted to convince myself of her indifference, hoping she might overlook the incident. However, upon opening the refrigerator to retrieve my medication, a stark reality hit me. My prescription bottle was nearly depleted, and I lacked the funds for a refill. A paralyzing fear gripped my entire being. The revelation struck me. Sinead had been the one financing my healthcare all along. If her anger was genuine, if she truly decided to sever ties, what would become of me? Self-reproach began to surface. Not for the content of my words, for they were honest, but for allowing my true feelings to emerge. I had laid bare my thoughts, and now the repercussions loomed before me. I attempted to reach her repeatedly. Each call went unanswered. My voicemail lingered in silence. Terror began to consume me. Not the fear of losing my daughter's presence, but the dread of losing the financial support she provided. I had no resources for medical care, no transportation to appointments, no means to cover my health expenses. Perched on my bed, I stared at my phone screen, where her final message remained unchanged. "Leave it up." I struggled to swallow. Deep down, I knew this was merely the beginning of my ordeal. The thought of my own daughter displaying such cruelty was unfathomable. What had I done to merit such treatment? I am her mother, who devoted everything to her upbringing, who gave her the foundation for her current success. Yet, because of one viral internet video, she completely abandoned me. That morning, I awakened to the familiar discomfort of arthritis. Reaching for my medication, I noticed something alarming. The bottle was almost empty, and I lacked funds for a refill. Heart racing, I checked my banking application. My account balance was critically low. Frantically, I searched my emails for insurance documentation. Then I discovered it, a notification from the insurance provider. "Your account has been canceled due to the withdrawal of your sponsor from the program." My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be real. With trembling hands, I dialed Sinead's number. Silence. I tried again. Nothing. Desperately, I combed through my inbox. An email from Sinead appeared, its heading sterile and formal, financial policy update. Opening it, I absorbed each devastating line. After years of providing financial support for my mother, I have decided to discontinue covering her insurance and medical expenses. From now on, she will be responsible for her own livelihood. How dare she? How could she do this to me? The pain in my chest felt physical as rage coursed through my veins. Without hesitation, I contacted my sister, Maureen. After the disastrous live stream incident, she remained the only family member still willing to communicate with me. "I need help," I blurted out as soon as she answered. "What's going on, Patricia?" Her tone carried a note of caution. "Sinead has cut me off completely. No insurance, no medication, nothing." My voice wavered between fury and desperation. "My own daughter has abandoned me." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably. I could sense Maureen's internal struggle, weighing her options before finally releasing a heavy sigh. "You can stay with me temporarily," she offered reluctantly. "But you must promise to stay out of trouble, understand?" Though she couldn't see me, I nodded in agreement. The following day, I arrived at Maureen's with a modest suitcase containing a few clothing items and my dwindling supply of medication. Her home was more compact than mine, but it provided shelter when I needed it most. Despite Maureen's attempts at kindness, her discomfort with my presence was palpable. Yet I had no alternatives. My deteriorating health, financial crisis, and overwhelming isolation left me with no choice but to accept help wherever I could find it. If Sinead wouldn't provide it, I'd seek it elsewhere. What truly infuriated me was Maureen's constant defense of my daughter. "Patricia," she ventured one evening as we sat in her living room, "have you considered that perhaps Sinead needs space? Maybe your approach has been too controlling." I felt my body tense. Too controlling? I scoffed bitterly. "I gave up everything for that girl, and this is my reward?" Maureen's resigned sigh only fueled my anger. I knew she sided with Sinead. The entire family was probably gossiping, labeling me as the overbearing mother who deserved abandonment. No, I wouldn't allow Sinead to escape the consequences of her actions. I refused to accept this fate passively. If she thought she could discard me without repercussions, she was mistaken. I began a systematic campaign, calling every relative to share my version of events. Can you believe it? I complained to Aunt Bridget. "Your niece has abandoned her mother over some ridiculous internet video. She's left me with nothing, no financial support, no insurance, no care. After all my sacrifices, I once commanded respect within our family. Now I found myself ostracized, the subject of whispered conversations. Word reached me that Sinead had circulated an email to all relatives, attaching an itemized list of her financial contributions to my care over the years. She was deliberately attempting to shame me, painting me as a parasitic burden. My rage continued to build. I sacrificed my entire youth for her. I toiled endlessly, pushing myself beyond limits just so she could have opportunities one never had, so her dreams could take flight. And now she was treating me with such callous disregard? The following morning, a message from Sinead appeared on my phone. "Mom, all the insurance documentation is complete. You're on your own from here on out. Don't try to reach me anymore." I stared at the screen, my grip so tight on the phone that my fingernails left crescent marks in my palm. How dare she do this to me? Did she truly believe she could cast me aside like some disposable burden? I slammed the phone onto the table, my pulse racing with fury. If she believed this was the conclusion, she was gravely mistaken. This couldn't be the final chapter. I am her mother. I brought her into this world, nurtured her through every stage, weathered countless sleepless nights and endless hardships for her sake. She couldn't simply discard me like a broken possession. Yet here I sat in Maureen's unfamiliar living space, stripped of everything. No financial security, no insurance coverage, completely alone. All because my daughter chose to inflict the most severe punishment she could devise. For days, I maintained my silence. I attempted to preserve a facade of normalcy, to keep my dignity intact before Maureen, but I recognized her silent judgment. Her glances whenever I mentioned Sinead spoke volumes. Though unspoken, I knew she believed this was my just desserts. No, this situation was unacceptable. I couldn't remain passive while my daughter ruthlessly severed our ties. Confrontation was inevitable. Knowing she would ignore my calls, I devised an alternative strategy. I requested Maureen drive me to her workplace, the real estate office. I knew precisely where to find her. Face to face, she couldn't avoid me. Upon arrival, I stormed into the office, rage simmering beneath my surface. The receptionist eyed me nervously as I marched determinedly toward the work area. "Where's Sinead?" I demanded, my tone commanding. The receptionist faltered. "Miss Sullivan is currently in a meeting. Would you like to?" "I don't care about any meeting. I'm her mother. Bring her out now." I felt every eye in the office turn toward me. Their stares suggested I'd lost my mind. I remained undeterred. My only focus was seeing my daughter. Then, the meeting room door swung open. Sinead emerged. Her expression was completely neutral as she regarded me. No trace of anger or embarrassment, just pure, cold detachment. Why are you here? Her voice carried a steely resolve. I stepped forward, ready to confront her directly. How could you do this to me? I demanded. Cutting off my insurance, my medication. What were you thinking? She stood there, arms crossed, completely unmoved. You know exactly why. I let out a bitter laugh. Because of some ridiculous video online? Is this your twisted form of revenge? Her shoulders lifted slightly. This isn't about revenge. I'm simply done dealing with all of it. I stood there, paralyzed. Done dealing with it? I echoed, feeling waves of rage and shame wash over me. I was the one who endured everything. I gave up my whole life for you. She exhaled heavily. Can't you see? You never once showed gratitude for what I did. You acted like it was my duty, as if my sole purpose was to serve you. I tried so hard to be the daughter you wanted, but you. A harsh laugh escaped her as she looked at me with unmistakable revulsion. You only ever saw me as a means to an end. Her words struck me like a physical blow. How dare you say such things? I whispered. She met my gaze steadily, unwavering. Yes, I said it. Now you understand my position. The reality hit me. She had actually severed all ties. Without remorse, without hesitation. My fingers curled into tight fists, my voice trembling with fury. Mark my words, Sinead, I snarled. I won't submit to this. I am your mother. That's an unchangeable fact. She remained unmoved. Think what you want. But don't show up here causing chaos again. I no longer have any obligations to you. With those words, she turned and walked away. I remained rooted to the spot, watching my world collapse. After this confrontation, I went back to Maureen's house, but everything had shifted. She began distancing herself, her previous warmth vanishing. I knew Sinead had spoken with her. Finally, one evening as I entered the kitchen, she voiced what I'd been dreading. Patricia, this arrangement can't continue indefinitely. I stopped dead. What? What are you saying? She sighed deeply. You need to sort out your life. I can't keep supporting you. You must find a way to stand on your own. Something inside me shattered. You're deserting me too? I cried out. After everything I've contributed to this family? Maureen's expression held both sympathy and resolution. You can't depend on others forever, Patricia. I wanted to scream, to break something, to fight back. But deep down, I recognized the truth. I was powerless now. Everyone had abandoned me. No one would come to my aid. I had lost absolutely everything. 2 weeks later, I departed from Maureen's residence with nothing more than a tattered bag containing my old clothes. I found myself in a dilapidated room in a deteriorating neighborhood. Each morning, I rationed my medication carefully, using it as a daily reminder that I still existed in this world. My identity as a mother had been stripped away. My family was gone. All that remained was my solitary existence. But the memories would stay. Forgiveness was not an option. And I would ensure Sinead's life would never know true peace. I sit in this tiny, frigid room, where the only sound breaking the deafening silence is the methodical ticking of the wall clock. Never in my entire existence did I imagine this would be my fate, a woman of 62, completely isolated, with no one to care for, no one who seeks my presence. I once embodied the role of a dedicated mother. I was once an unwavering pillar of strength, battling relentlessly for my family, for my daughter. Now, I've been reduced to nothing but a dim reflection, a mother erased from her child's memory. Sinead has completely cast me aside. I am utterly alone. After Maureen forced me out, I secured a cheap room in a crumbling apartment complex on Boston's periphery. The space is cramped, permeated with the stench of mold, and I'm surrounded by faceless neighbors I've never encountered. Days blur together meaninglessly. I rise, gaze out the window, searching for purpose in each empty day. The situation worsened as my financial resources dwindled. Without insurance coverage, I faced the cruel choice between medication and sustenance. I attempted to seek help at a local community center, but the bureaucratic maze proved overwhelming, and the act of seeking charity felt foreign and degrading. Sinead maintained her silence. Not a single word, not one phone call. It was as if my existence had been completely erased from her narrative. Yet I knew she was thriving. Through former neighbors, I learned of her return to nursing school. While maintaining her real estate career, she was now pursuing the dream I thought she had abandoned. I discovered her in an online feature, a story about women conquering adversity to achieve their goals. Her photograph showed a radiant smile, eyes brimming with confidence, completely unburdened by guilt. She had truly moved forward without me. I once held firm to the belief that children owed their parents a duty. I believed family bonds transcended life's changes. How wrong I was. Did I fail in raising her? Was my devotion too suffocating, turning into an unbearable burden? Or am I the source of her hatred? These questions haunt me nightly in the oppressive darkness of this confined space. But one truth remains unshakable: I don't deserve this fate. I am her mother. My entire life was sacrificed for her benefit. Though imperfect, though flawed, these shortcomings don't justify her treating me like a stranger she can simply discard. Can children really discard their parents so easily? Do people think I have given up? No. I am still here, remembering every single thing she has done to me. I may have nothing left, but I still have my memory. I still remember what she said, what she did. I know that one day, she will have to face the consequences of her actions. She may be happy now, but time will teach her a lesson. One day, she will need me. And when that day comes, I will be right here, watching her beg, just as I once begged her. Do I deserve this? I raised my daughter, I sacrificed everything. And in the end, what did I get in return? Do you think children have the right to cut ties with their parents? Or is it just an excuse to escape responsibility? If you were in my place, what would you do? Leave a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something like this? Share your story. Hit like if you can relate. Share if you think this is worth discussing. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story.